Aloha, everyone. I'm Jason Donaldson from Jason Donaldson Healer. I'm here today to share a little information about something I've been feeling a lot lately is grief. And I've had enough other people come to me or just people I know sharing about grief and grief they're connecting to from long ago that they weren't even really fully cognizant of, and how as I've been sitting with my own grief, and it's about a relationship that didn't work out the way I'd hoped. And I had all these hopes and dreams for it. And I really put a lot of love and a lot of like focus on love instead of judgment. Whenever my mind was offering thoughts of judgment around it, it was coming to the love. And then ultimately, it just wasn't a good match. And we went our separate ways. And this person, we're still friends, but there's this longing for, and that's what I wanted to talk about with grief. It's like the love's there, and then there's this longing for that connection for what was experienced before. And intellectually, it's easy to be like, well, I know it's just an association. I'm just associating what I was feeling that I know comes from deep inside of me with this other person, and like how deeply connected I felt that with them. And for those of us that have found it inside first and then find someone, it's we can get caught up in that, externalizing it on that person. And then others of us, we haven't really found it inside, or we weren't really aware of that. And we experienced it with someone outside. And we really put a lot of love and attention into them and our relationship, or it was a family member or somebody that we just, loved from the start. And we've always felt that energy. And what I always try to remember myself and what I want to remind everyone is that love started inside. We couldn't perceive that in another unless we had that ourselves. And so that's a lot of what's happening is we're projecting that love out onto another and making it about we need that person to be a certain way or be in our lives or be around us again to feel it. And, that's a very intellectual approach, and it's, a spiritual, potentially bypassing approach, but it's something to keep in mind as we're like having to navigate what the reality is. And if someone died, there's the reality that that person may even be closer to us now, and being open to that. But this thing with grief is, what I studied when I got my marriage and family therapy degree was there's these stages of grief that everyone knows about. And it's not really a linear thing. We can go in and out of these different stages. And as far as the diagnostical and statistical manual is concerned, which is a way to label things that humans experience that I don't fully agree with, but I see it helps for like research and things like that. And it's recognizing patterns. And the whole point I even bring that up is there's this recognition of a pattern that grief isn't really an issue until it's been like more than 6 months, and it's creating the inability to really thrive in our lives. And so grief is going to be normal. We're going to feel things for quite a while sometimes. And that's fine. That's part of the human experience. And so what I'm doing is I'm just letting myself be in that feeling, to feel the sadness when it comes up and the longing for that love to be shared with another at the same distance, to have that close connection and to be loving and to share that love that is inside of me with that person and have it be reciprocated is just a beautiful thing. And anybody's going to miss that when it's gone. So there's nothing wrong with us when we feel that. And it's ongoing sometimes. And this is the other thing is, as human beings, we can have this galactic perspective. We know we're spirit. We can have this level of light enlightenment or awareness, but it doesn't change the fact that we're going to have emotion, and we're still here in this reality as a human being feeling what we feel, unless, we're a sociopath, which a lot of us chose to not feel as much. And we come in with those lifetimes where we get to be that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just neurodiversity. It's just that like not really understanding the emotions of others, and therefore not always navigating that as relevant to what you want and desire, and then being confused, like, why does everyone hate me? And it's like, oh, well, whatever, and because there's not this fear and emotion about it. It's just like, oh, whatever. Well, I'm just going to keep doing my thing. But so I got a little off on my tangent there, but I was talking about the grief and just being with the feeling and being with the breath to feel what's coming up. And it's a natural inclination to start thinking about that person, but to come back to the feeling and just feel the emotion and breathe with it. And anything that brings us into presence is going to help us navigate what's around us in the moment. So like this morning I went on a walk and I looked around and, meditating on the cliffs because I'm blessed to be right by the ocean. I can go sit on the cliffs and look at the ocean. And, I opened my eyes and there's dolphins everywhere. It's like, oh, geez, I might have missed that if I kept closing my eyes and tuning into the grief or sadness. And because there's always something better coming. And, not that we can even compare good or bad with this or better or even better or whatever, but it's like, it's all happening for us. And to be gentle with yourself and know that you didn't do anything wrong, and that person chose to go where they went to go, whether they died or whether they decided the relationship wasn't worth holding on to, or something interrupted our flow and we weren't able to fully show up for them and we had to take off. And it's not really a failure. It can feel like that too. Like, oh, if only I'd done this, or if only I could go back and change that, or if only I'd known this was going to happen and I was going to feel this, then it would be all right. But I take comfort in knowing it happened the way it happened, and that's the only way it could happen. And that's like a whole Morpheus thing, right? It happened the way it needed to. It happened the way it happened, and that's the way, because we would all we would no longer be alive, kind of thing. But so I'm feeling this grief, which is really just a sadness and a longing for what I had and what I hoped for and what I know will not be. Maybe not without a shadow of a doubt, but I'm pretty certain it's not going to be what I wanted it to be, and it's not working. So it's moving on and letting go, and remembering that, and during the inception, the love was there first. And then I was able to experience it with another because I was in the place of love and openness. And personally, I was more open than I'd ever been with somebody. And what I mean by that is I kept coming to love. My ego, my intellect always offered opportunities for me to put up my wall, my barriers, sabotage. My subconscious used to sabotage relationships, but now, that's what raising our level of consciousness does, is we start to feel the subconscious. We start to notice what's coming up, and it feels kind of dark and scary. And then to breathe and be present with it, then there's a choice. Do I say this thing? Do I entertain this thought being offered to me? Do I realize, oh, I'm scared right now, even though I'm like really happy and in love and feeling a deep connection with this person, but part of me is freaking the fuck out. And it's like to breathe with it and then choose. And so that's what I really did, is choose love over and over. And it still didn't work out. And so for people out there, not saying I'm some, perfect being that chose love every single time, but I did a really good job with that. And my partner would even say, like, I don't understand how you love me so much. Why do you love me so much? And it's because I was choosing the love. And it still didn't work because we're not really aligned in where we're at in life right now. And that's fine if no one's any better or less than with this. And it was the fact that it still didn't work out. And so it's not really a failure in my opinion, but I see it as a failure sometimes, and I have to come back from that. And I share that for others. Like, it's not a failure. You did it, you were in it. That's what's real. Like, a failure is when we don't even try, when we fall in love with someone and we freak out and run away. And even that, is like we stayed with them long enough to allow the love to come forth. And I see we keep doing that throughout our lifetimes until we really embrace it, feel the pain when it's no longer there, because everything's going to change, and realize that the love is inside. And again, for me, that's coming into, the presence, to come into the now moment. All the things we hear And then it's actually doing it because we can think we're present and we're not. And so the breath helps tuning into the breath, like looking around, just kind of noticing as you breathe, letting the eyes kind of float around wherever they may go. And this is really used a lot in somatic experiencing, therapeutic approach, where you're just letting yourself orientate to your environment and breathing calmly and relaxing. And if anybody, a lot of you out there, if you're watching me, you're obviously into weird stuff and galactic information and new earth and all that. And you know what it's like to feel that oneness, to feel the flow state, to feel like really connected with everything. And that's all we have to do is remember that feeling. And every time we're in it, really appreciate it. And then it's kind of like remembering that feeling as you breathe and look around. And it was like this expandedness, like everything expands, everything opens, the body's open, we feel safe, we're relaxed, calm, breathing, and the breath is really able to expand the belly breath up into the chest, and everything's fine. And so that's always there, always there. We're all enlightened. We're all like masters. And that's something a recent Bashar video I saw was, Earth is the master class. If you're here, you're on the path of mastery. And there's another gentleman, Neville Goddard, that he did a number of speaking engagements and they were turned into books in the 50s. And he's basically the one that created or spawned the law of attraction movement. And his thing was more the law of assumption. And so a lot of people like got his material and others and moved into this law of attraction thing. But he had the law of assumption, which I really like because we're infinite, unlimited beings. We're basically spirits having a human experience. And then there's the opportunity to, like, with that knowing, step into whatever energy we truly are. And so what is it you are? What energy do you want to embody? And as you step in and embody that energy, despite what's happening around you, you're still feeling things, you're still interacting with the world, but you're always coming back to like who it is you want to be, what that energy is. And whether it's love, or for me, it's like mastery, to be present, to be focused, to be engaged, to like breathe and feel what I'm feeling and not blame people, not run away, even though sometimes that happens and it's fine. But to be that, to assume, oh, I am in mastery. I'm stepping into my mastery today. And please, please, guides, guardians, higher self, star brothers and sisters, my dragon families, God, the energy of all things, please help me on this journey to be in this self-mastery, to be a master healer, to be a master teacher, and all these things. And it sounds maybe ego and like arrogant, but it's owning that energy of this is who I am at my core. Like we all are. We all have this connection to source, and therefore we are all things. And we still have a human experience, and it's not bypassing when we're still living and feeling. And we feel, and then we always remember that deep inside, we chose this. We chose to be here, especially at this time, to ascend, to feel these emotions coming in, to breathe with them, to breathe them into presence, and to have grace with ourselves and others, and to give ourselves space when we lose someone or something that's really precious to us, and allow the sadness to come, to breathe with it. And if, the emotions are like water, we allow the water to flow rather than grabbing onto it, pinching the hose with all the thoughts that are being offered, with the story, with the longing. Like that's all going to be offered, but coming to the breath and the feeling, and keep doing that until there's this flow and this release. And you'll find your own process with that. And I can assist too, if you like. But we all have our own inner guidance, and we all have our level of mastery that's there. And so the invitation is to be gentle with yourself. And I feel yet like there's this desire for that experience again, and to have that level of intimacy and connection. And we feel like we'll never show up again, but it always does. There's always someone else that shows up, or there's always some other thing, or there's the appreciation of that being and how, and this is in a lot of research as well, they show up when someone dies. They show up, in dreams or in a presence in our room, or just a general feeling. It's like you sense them, you smell them, you kind of hear their voice, you know what their energy feels like. And that's really, really common. And we have the ability to still connect with them, maybe more so when people pass. And then for those of us that, lost a loved one, as far as like a relationship loved one, we get to navigate seeing that person again and feeling those feelings, and really coming into our mastery with like, oh, I'm not going to blame them for what happened, because that would be easier. And then I wouldn't have to feel as much as I feel. I could feel anger rather than sadness. Or if they're with someone else, it's like, oh, you got to see that and experience that feeling, and play with that feeling, and remember that, ultimately it was about loving them and wanting them to be happy too. And none of this is easy. So I just wanted to show some love and share a little of what's real for me and what's going on. And, always from a place of wanting to help. And if it doesn't resonate, just discard it. I bring in basically what I've learned in my master's program as a marriage and family therapist. Although I'm not licensed, I'm doing this instead. I get to work with energy and breath and sound and the Sekhem, which is an energy healing technique from ancient Egypt, with our Syrian brothers and sisters. So they do the work. I just channel it, and I get to set up the ceremony and the structure around it with integration practices and all that. So bringing the galactic wisdom and honoring your galactic self and why you're here, and as we navigate this as human beings, and basically ascending with all of our parts, all of our feels, and remembering ultimately that with the breath, with presence, we can be the divine parent. We can be the divine being that integrates and loves everything that comes to us from the right distance. So hope you're all having an amazing day out there, and I'll catch you later.